Today we're going to do some frame straightening on this 1942 Harley WLA frame. I built this frame table here 2 or 3 years ago, and you can change positions on these loops here. These can go to the back if you need to straighten the back of the frame, or this one here can actually move back in another position. You can see the holes there, and that's to push on it in different positions on the frame. I found that almost all 45 frames that I've come across so far, and I've had somewhere around 8 frames in this frame straightening jig, they all do this. There's a laser level, and it's centered to the table. It goes up the frame, and you're going to see that's normal. They all kind of veer off. So what I have come up with is, I think that because it's a single down tube here, as opposed to like a big twin, which is a double down tube, there's not as much strength here. And because the kickstand's on the left side, the kicker's on the right, the way that the tire sits, I think it causes flex in the frame over the last 80 years. Because every one of them they've all got the same kind of angle that they've been kind of bent towards. It's not from an accident or like casting, because the Harley actually gives you a bit of they got not much, but they do give you some measurements and to go off of, and every one of my frames has the same bends in it. So what we'll do is we'll show you how we straighten these. So we got porta power here, cylinder. That one is a push. We have a pull one, or that one's a pull one. I can't remember. And we just we'll push it into position, pull it, and no heat. It's all cold. We have it's mounted on the back here at the transmission. There's a pin in here at the bottom that goes into the seat post tube. Then there's a perimeter frame that goes around, and then there's a stud that goes into the bushing. I always put a new bushing in so that's nice and tight. And I'll show you on another video how much work it takes to get to this point where everything is leveled to the table and goes up. So there's a lot of shimming that goes on to make sure that that frame is right where I want it and level. There's a brace in between to the motor mounts, and you'll see when, like I've seen it when I've finished straightening, how when I put a motor inside the frame, how there's so much less shimming that has to be done, and it just fits better. So I know a couple of bikes I have that, like in my blue one, the front end, the neck is for sure twisted. You can just feel it. Once you know what you're looking for. I noticed that it's going down the road, it's kicked off a bit, but you know, it's just my own observations. So the first thing I gotta do is I gotta hook up all the porta powers and then figure out where do I want to start pushing and pulling from. And on this frame, like running my hand along the frame tube, you can feel like it's not perfectly round like some of the other ones. Like you can feel there was probably some damage done at one point over the years. It's just a little bit of a flat spot right here, and you can just feel it. And when you look at the laser level here in this plane, you can see it goes kind of centered, and then it kind of starts veering off right around this point here. So that means that I got to push the neck over and keep this plane in position. This is where I want to pull the bend out of. So in order to do that, I got to put my port of power here against this frame, because it's right around here that it's got to be straightened. So I got the port of power in position, and I put a little bit of pressure just to keep it in position. And then what I'll do is on this side, I'm gonna have to put some pressure on it to push against it. You're kind of catching me about 3/4 the way through straightening this frame. I had done some work on it previously, and but I never captured it on video or anything. So now what I'll try and do is the next frame I'll bring you right from the ground up, how we put it into the frame straightening jig, and work our way up. So right now you can see how it's pushing just a bit of pressure on there. It's actually pushed the frame over in the jig, just over a little bit, and it's hard to get all this at one time, but what I'll try and do is watch this right here. You're gonna see as I push on it. Oh, damn it. So I had to change the position of the top cylinder. There's different ways of doing it, but this one's gonna make it easier. So I'm gonna pull on this one. This one's gonna keep it in position, and you can see right now how the line is off-centered here. And this is it's all centered on the table to the bottom of the frame and goes up, and you can see how the neck actually just veers all over. So we're gonna start pulling it over. You should be able to see as I pull it, just if you can look here, because it's very apparent there. So as I go, you can see it moving. You can actually see the entire frame moving. And what you have to do is you have to go past center, because that's the only time you're gonna actually bend it or straighten it, sorry. So you can see I've gone probably a good 1/2 inch over. And what I'll do now is I'll release it all and see where we're at. This is like the final stage. This is just the final tweaking I had to do. And we'll see how it looks in a second. So to give you another visual, here's a ruler. And just look at the gaps. You can see in the center, so I've got this kind of sitting on these the castings, and you can just see how the gap at the bottom of the tube and the top of the tube is away from the ruler, but the center is touching. You can see, trying to give you at least a little bit of an idea. So if you look at the gap between going down, up and down, right in the center part here, it's a bit bowed. So after a couple of pushing and pulling, we're a lot closer. This is just off, and it's just off up here. It's hard to see along the neck, but centered all the way up, and then just on the opposite side of that casting, which is, you know, kind of we're taking it as our center point, and it's almost in the center of this point. Again, really hard to see in this light, but this is a piece of round stock that you can see on here. I've marked straight. That's the straight line. The bars, round stock won't be perfectly perfect everywhere, but I found this is when I've rotated, that's a perfect straight line. So I've marked it. You go up, you can see the line comes down the center of the neck, follows all the way down, laser level. So now that line is straight in comparison to the frame. So again, this is all self-taught. This is just you know, I built this out of necessity to get some of these frames back straight. And you know, some people would have different ways of doing it. This is how I do it. You know, critique me all you want, but it seems to work. So here we have our measurement, straight edge. So I set up I think it's a 4-foot long level. It's tight here. There's an 1/8 inch spacer there, and then you do your measurement here, 3/16. And yeah, it's bang on, ready to go. So we'll get this one out of the frame straightening jig, sorry, and we'll put that one in next. But first, we're going to take the flanders, and we're going to put it in there so I can get this back section of this frame straighter, so you can see how it kicks out there. So we're going to get all this squared up. Obviously this frame jig is not made for that, and I haven't made any mounting brackets, but I have a couple axle brackets, rear axle brackets, that I can put in and make it work. So we got the frame now in our frame straightening jig. This is just set up so we can kind of get the back end straightened again, and then mount the motor in.